Hi, this is Michael Becker, and in this Tinderbox lesson, we're going to talk about how text is rendered and previewed within Tinderbox, because there's been a number of people in the community that have had questions about that. So let's just jump right in and take a look. All right, so you see I've got a blank Tinderbox file open here, and we're going to go ahead and say, hello world, hello world. Okay, so this is going to be our note 1. All right, so we've got hello world, and we'll say, hello world. I am note 1. Okay, so we've added some text into the Tinderbox, and just to remind everybody, this is the name of the note up here, and here is your text body. In attribute language, this is your $name, and this is your $text. Now, let's talk about what's going on here. So we want to be able to start manipulating and changing some of this content. So maybe I've got some bullets. So I'll say, bullet 1. I'll add another one, bullet 2. We could do that. And maybe somewhere along the line you found, this is red. You were using Tinderbox and you found the styled formatting up here, and you went ahead and changed this to red. And perhaps you say this is centered, and we go ahead up here up in the format window, you text and you stylize the content to centered. And then along the way, you stumbled across the rich text formatting WYSIWYG toolbar here, and then we could use that as well. So maybe you can align left, and so this is now aligned right, and then we can go back and create another one. This is centered, and so you spend a lot of time editing this WYSIWYG element of your content, getting it just the way you wanted it to look, and then you said, all right, now I want to preview this, because maybe along the way you stumbled across this toolbar and you realize that I could preview the text. And then you're like, well, wait a minute, where did all my editing go? That seems really strange. And so then that could cause some cognitive dissonance, and you're like, I don't understand what's happening. Tinderbox must be broken. That's not the case. What you're seeing now here is a transition. You're moving from managing text in what is called the text pane, and as you started using the WYSIWYG toolbar here, and as you started using this formatting up here, and if you were, and as is often the case, if you had this experience where you've copied and pasted content from one document to another. So for example, I'll see if I can do that with here in one of my Word files. I'll go in and copy and paste this text from a paper I'm working on into this document, and you'll see now the font has gotten interesting, and if I preview here again, that font struggle goes away. So what you've seen here, what's happened is this is essentially, this text field here is moved from just being basic text to now being rich formatted text, or RTF, so rich text format. And the rich text format was invented by Microsoft in the 90s as a standard to help it be able to administer and manage the viewability of text across all of the various Microsoft Office documents. And since Microsoft has been a leader in word processing for decades now, that standard has been accepted by other applications, and in this case, including Tinderbox. It allows you to be able to render rich text content within your text window. Now, but again, that doesn't necessarily answer your question of what's happening here. Why does all the formatting disappear when I click preview? Let me get to that in just a second. I'm going to go over here and I'm going to show you, I've got 3 documents that I've created over here. I've got this Word file here, and you're going to see in the Word file some text that we've entered in here. So you'll see this is a Microsoft Word document. It's in rich text in the DocOX formatting standard. And you'll see I've got some text. I've got a heading. I've got some links in here, some italicized content, etc. Now, if you go in here and you do save as, you can save the document here from a docs file to a rich text formatted file using RTF, which I've already done. So I'm going to move that away, and I'm going to open this document up as a rich text formatted document. Now we're going to do that in BB Edit, and what you're going to see is what's behind the scenes of that rich text formatted document is all of this, right? So if I were to open up the RTF document in Word, again, Word has developed that standard for being able to see and render RTF as have other documents. So these applications know how to go through all of this communication in here and essentially render the RTF document in Word. And let me go ahead and open that now, just so you can see it. And essentially, Microsoft has now rendered the RTF document in what they're calling compatibility mode, where they're going to be, Microsoft Word is now going to be compatible with RTF, and you're seeing it as expected. But what's behind the scenes is all of this code that's being used to tell Word to render that RTF, that rich text format. Now, what does this text look like that I just showed you in other formats? So if I take that content that I showed you here in this rich text formatted document, and I now show that to you in text, that all of this code in here is what that looks like in a text document. So you see it's a lot more simplified. You don't have any of that rich formatting though. For example, my links aren't being highlighted and they're not clickable. So that's what it looks like in text. If I used another type of markup language, this is a markup language for seeing that document in Markdown. And you'll see again, you don't have all of it's not wrapped with all of those different headers and capabilities that you were seeing earlier. But we are using different syntax, basically notation syntax. If I put brackets here and then the parentheses, when I render this, you'll see that text will actually be rendered as links, and because that's the way you render links in Markdown. Likewise, if I close this out and I go look at this document in Microsoft or in HTML, I'll go ahead and double click on the HTML file and we'll pull it over. And you'll see this is the way a browser would render this content. And if I go ahead and click behind it, I'll close that file and I'll just go and look at it. It looks like I already have it open. Here is what that markup language looks like in HTML, where you're essentially telling Tinderbox to render the headings as H1 and render the paragraphs as Ps. And this is the syntax for rendering links using HTML tags. So you can see there's a lot of differentiation between how different applications and different functions render content in images. So the developers at Tinderbox have decided, look, we're not going to make the preview engine and put all this time and energy and effort to making the preview engine rendering RTF language, because that's just frankly really, really difficult to do, and you'll get inconsistent results. So what you may find over time, now this is okay, if you just want to do RTF and you want to keep all your notes in Tinderbox and you're fine with that, that's perfectly fine. But over time, as you become more adept with the various syntaxes of using the tools within Tinderbox, and you may also find that you want to start exporting your content and sharing your content with other individuals, at which point, rather than using the RTF language, which is very difficult to get consistency as you export your content out of Tinderbox, as well as even previewing it in that context can be difficult, you might want to start learning and applying what we call templates. And templates are essentially stylized HTML pages. And through templates, you can then instruct Tinderbox how to render your content. So let's go ahead and demonstrate that to you. So you'll notice here, when I'm clicking here, I'm not getting into my stylized content and I'm just getting my hello world. So now, in order to start applying and using the preview template a little bit more, we're going to go up here, or better, I'm going to go ahead and apply an HTML template. Okay, and so what it's just done is it's just added both the prototype for HTML as well as the HTML template to my notes. And now look what happens. When I go click here, and I go click preview, interesting. Well, look what just happened. It actually took the name of my note, which wasn't there before, and it stylized it as a big black piece of text, aka heading 1, and then it added in the rest of my content there. Okay, so, and again, if we delete the template, you'll see that, let's do it again. We'll delete the template, and we'll go back and click on this. You'll see the title disappeared, and I'm just getting my text. If I add the template back in, okay, let me click over here to the body. If I add the template back in, and HTML, you'll see it's now adopted the HTML template to be able to stylize that content. And so if I go here and I'm going to look at outline view, let me show with you what's going on. So when we actually look at the HTML template, this is what's happening. And let me just explain some to you. So when, remember this preview tab is basically a mini browser, if you will, a lightweight browser. And what it's doing is it's essentially reading the structure of the page here. And essentially what you're telling it to do is you're saying, I'm an HTML page. Open up the HTML page. Here is the header information for that page. Here is the body information for that page. And what I want you to do is the first thing I want you to do is wrap the title of this note with the H1 tags of HTML and display that as a heading 1. And then I want you to insert the text, and then I want you to process the children. And we're going to get back to that in just a minute, the children part. So when I go look here, that's how I'm getting the stylized text. So now you may want to ask yourself, that's interesting, but I really wanted some of this text centered and I wanted this to be red, etc. So there are various ways and strategies for going about doing that. If you want to have all of your body text be red, you can leverage things like this. So I'm going to go ahead and create a new note, and I'm going to call it let me go do it this way. I'm going to create a new note. I'll call it a style sheet. And just for ease of use, I'm going to go ahead and apply the, open up the code and make that code so I can go ahead and stylize this note a little bit easier. And I'm going to create some CSS styling here. And I'm going to go ahead and drop some pre-configured CSS styling that I've written in another note and in this note. Okay, so this is basically what we call CSS. And CSS is a way to start styling content. And so in this case, what I'm telling it to do, and I can go ahead and add a P tag in here too, for example. And I can say P, and I'll say color, red, and then we'll close that out. Okay, and so now look what happens. If I go into my HTML, and I instruct the system to use the style that I just put in, and I'll say use the text of the note CSS. Okay, and then I close that style. So essentially what we're doing is we're saying, hey Tinderbox, I want you to apply the style of text from from this template into this hello world template, and I want you to use this CSS style. So if I go in here and I apply it, look, now all of my text is red. Now my bullets are not, because bullets are another style. And so we're not here to teach you CSS styling just yet, but I just kind of want to share with you, how some of the how this is working within that methodology. So if I go ahead and delete this now, the style, notice I haven't deleted the CSS template. I can always put it back in. If I go here and show you that, now I get my hello world. Now watch what happens too. If I go in here, and let's say we're going to say, here's a heading 2. Okay, and actually what I'm going to do it this way. I don't want to put it in the text. What I'm going to do is a heading 2. So I'm going to go and say, isn't, but the world is grand. Isn't the world a grand place? Okay, so you'll see here I've got 2 notes, and again, if I look at that now in preview with this note, you'll see I'm getting that same kind of styling that we had before. Now watch what happens if I tab in and I move this note underneath this one. Essentially, I'm making this child a note of this one. Let's go back to the HTML template. You'll see here in the template it's saying children templates HTML page HTML item. Essentially, what we're telling Tinderbox is saying, for the first note, when you apply that HTML template to a note, you can say make the header 1 and then make the text. And then what I want you to do is process the children with that HTML item or with that template. And so if I open this up, you see there's the path to the template. We're saying the children template is templates HTML page HTML item. So I want you to process any children of a note with this template. So let's go look at what we're telling it to do here. Well, what we're telling it to do here is I want you to process the title of the children with the H2 tag. and I want you to process and then introduce the text, and then I want to have you process every other child until you're done with that using this same template. So if we go and do that and take a look what happens. All right, so we're getting the world is grand, isn't this a grand place? Hello world, note 1. And you'll see that it too is getting processed, but you'll notice its tag is slightly smaller. It's an H2 tag, not an H1 tag. Let's make that a little bit more dramatic. Let's say we go and change it, and we want the heading 2s to actually be styled with these colors, or excuse me, with the bold and underlined. And so when I go and do that, you'll see this, and you'll now see that those are text. Now you notice everything just got bold real quick. Well, I made a mistake. If I go in here, I didn't close out the bold tag. So if I close out the bold tag in the template, and now I go and look, you'll see I've got the parent note is being titled with the heading 1 tag, then it's text, and then the child note heading 2, and if we add another child note, hello world note 1, and we'll say hello world note 2, and we'll add hey there in there. Okay, and now if we go ahead and look, you're going to see now 2 notes. First one, hello world note 1, hello world note 2, and they're stylized based on what we're telling it to do via the rendering of the template. Now, if we wanted to actually change the color, now remember this styling here. We said if H2 is in there, I want that to be a different color. This is a color of blue, and this is black, I'm sorry, and this is the color of blue. So let's go ahead back in here and copy back in the that text. Let me go ahead, I got it over here. We're going to copy that styling text back into the HTML page so you can see what happens. All right, we're going to go to the parent, and we'll go here. And now when I look at it, whoops, let me go back and fix let's remove that because we'll use the standard template of black for the text. And we're going to have H2 be our number 2, and we're going to go back and make this H2. We'll move it back like that. And then we go ahead and look and do preview, and voila! Now you'll see our notes are, this is the world is grand, here is its text. And now because of the style sheet, we said make all of your heading 2s this color blue. And so now you can administer that. Now let's say you wanted to surgically go in and say that particular piece of content in your text was going to be red. Well, you could easily do that. There's a couple strategies to go about doing that, and let me show you. One strategy is, and first and foremost, since we're now deciding that we want to start managing our notes not in RTF in this regard, because we know RTF doesn't render effectively, what we're going to do now is I'm going to go back here, I'm going to go to Style, and I'm going to reset the standard font size. And I'm going to go in and reset the standard font. Okay, so now I've got back the standard Tinderbox fonts and styles. And essentially what we've done is we've removed all of the RTF formatting. And if we wanted to do and just make sure we got everything away, we just go in and make sure and set that to default. So everything is default. So now if I want to say, just surgically say this word is red, I can use HTML tagging, what's called the span tag. And so we can say the style of that particular content equals the color equals, sorry, colon, red, and go like that. Sorry. All right, and we will say, and span. So essentially what we're doing is we're telling Tinderbox to end that span. Now here's what, because these are getting turned into what's called smart quotes. What you want to do in this context is you want to use what's called straight quotes. So I have used text expander to convert my quotes to have an easy way for me able to copy and replace quotes. The other way to do it is you could add the smart quotes attribute. If you wanted to turn that on and off on your notes, you could. So that way I can, if I have it off, you'll see I can make quotes without them being changed, or I can go up to edit, substitutions, and you'll see that I can turn the smart quotes on and off there as well. The reason why you want to do that is, again, when we have these smart quotes off, this is a version of RTF. It's basically converting these quotes to RTF, which in the preview, Tinderbox doesn't know how to render. So let me show you what happens. if I have that quote here and I go like this, you'll see it's basically going to do nothing. But if I remove the stylized version of that quote, and because again, Tinderbox doesn't know how to read the RTF styling on that quote, and I go back now and take a look, you'll see now that we've been able to surgically change that color to red. So it's really kind of nice that once you start getting a handle of using these kinds of notation formatting strategies, you can really develop some really effective means of being able to stylize and render your content in a whole variety of different ways. The one other thing I'd like to show you is this idea we'll call Markdown, the world in Markdown. Right, so a lot of people, struggle sometimes with this HTML formatting. If you don't know that language or you're not used to it, or frankly, it's just not that easy to read sometimes. So, for example, if I go over here and I click to HTML, you'll see we're actually seeing all the HTML. And if you're not comfortable, reading it, these tags can be really distracting. So sometimes you'll want to write content in Markdown, and what you can do with that is, let's say I go here. Well, first and foremost, in order to do that, we're going to tell Tinderbox that this is now going to use not the HTML syntax for rendering content, but rather we want this to use the Markdown syntax. So let me go ahead and your prototypes. We'll add the Markdown prototype. So this is essentially now telling Tinderbox that we want to be actually writing this note in Markdown, not in HTML or etc. So if I want to say this is a header, say header 1. Well, let's make it header 2 because the title will be header 1. The way to do a heading 1 in Markdown, by the way, is you say pound space and you say heading 1. And if you want to get 2 headings, you do this, and then we'll say this is text under heading 1. And then maybe we got a heading 2, and you say, here is a heading 2, right? And now if we go ahead and preview that, this is what we get. And essentially what it's done is Tinderbox has converted the Markdown to HTML, and we get exactly what we saw earlier when we were looking at the HTML, but now in HTML. And again, it's adopted that standard template that we've already developed. So that's why we're able to do that. And so essentially using Markdown notation, we're able to inform Tinderbox rather, the difference between tags. Now, again, here's another example. I could have just as easily entered in an HTML tag. Here is a heading 2 in HTML, right? And I can go ahead and close that. And you'll see we're going to ultimately get the same thing when we do that. So here's the heading HTML. Here, essentially, it's just the notation strategy or style that you want to have. Now in Tinderbox 9, Mark and the Tinderbox team have a lot of other really exciting things coming down the line when it comes to leveraging and using Markdown. But essentially, that's what I wanted to show you. This is the strategies for how to use and render content within your Tinderbox file, and to give you a better sense of what's going on here when you're interacting with the different views within your Tinderbox file. Now, I encourage you to go look at some of the other lessons we have when it comes to using export templates, modifying export templates. Let me go ahead and show you this, by the way. If you want to learn about some of the syntax of HTML, I encourage you to go to W3C Schools. Let me pull that up right here and bring it over. So this is a great resource for you. So this is W3 Schools. This is a wonderful website if you want to learn a little bit about HTML and the different tags that you can use in HTML for managing your code. And you'll see here that you can learn how to manage style sheets and such. And then there is also Common Mark. Let me see if I have it here already. Yeah, Common Mark cheat sheet. And so this is a really good cheat sheet if you want to learn about some of the notations for stylizing your content using Markdown language. And again, the Tinderbox 9 is going to have some really, really interesting things to give you more control over your Markdown, but you'll see different ways of building lists and such like that. Okay, and now let's say you wanted to surgically, in Markdown, say, this is red. Okay, well, Markdown doesn't have the ability to, there's no like Markdown color syntax. So you would use the same syntax that we used before. You'd enter a span. You'd say span, and you'd say style, and then you do, style equals, oops, style equals, and then you'd say color. Oh, we've got to do quotes, sorry. Color equals red. And then close the quotes. And then close the span. Now, when we do this, it's not going to work based on what I told you before. Both, we've got to spell it right. If we go here, it won't work. The reason why it didn't work is we need to disable the smart quotes because, again, these quotes got turned into RTF quotes, which Tinderbox Preview won't read. So when we fix those as into straight quotes, aka get rid of the RTF, you'll now see that that color is red. So that's there are a lot of different ways to be able to manage and organize your content, and hopefully this gives you a good sense and a bit of an understanding of the distinction between what's happening with your text pane, what's happening with your preview pane, and how the different HTML templates work. And then again, later we can give you more advanced training. I encourage you to see some of the other trainings as well on how to do templating and managing your content within Tinderbox. And then later too, we can also dig in deeper into helping you manage and interact with your export templates. Thank you very much. Take care. As always, please like this video, and if you don't mind, also subscribe to the channel. Appreciate it. Bye-bye.